Okay, so we are on to the hate crime update, which is item 6 on the agenda. And John, if I could just hand over to you just to quickly introduce.
We've previously made requests. This is a quarterly report, and it's a very timely report with all that's been happening over the summer. So it's a 12-month report. Angela.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the latest quarter report, as Mr Robbins has said, and I'll canter through it in a minute, but just to sort of pick out the headlines really, I suppose, from the report before going through various elements. We have had an increase in hate crime and hate incident reporting, as you would expect. A lot of it is media driven, and we understand that. And in West Yorkshire, the marked increase is around 70% when comparing the last period to the year before. So it's been an ongoing journey, I think it's true to say. It's not just in relation to Brexit, no. As other people have found, but a lot of that is down to our ongoing Hate Hurts campaign, which has been running now 18 to 24 months, so nearly up to 2 years. So actually, whilst other forces might have seen a sharp increase after Brexit, ours has been less obvious because ours has been going up for some time. But we see that as a good thing because we've been doing a lot of media and reaching out to communities and having third-party reporting centres set up across the communities to allow people to come in. When we actually look through the report covers, as it has done previously, but I think it's important to highlight it, what a hate crime is and what a hate incident is. Everything comes in as a hate incident initially, and then the vast bulk of those become hate crimes, and some very low level incidents are not crimes because they don't fit the criteria, but the bulk of them are hate crimes. And just to remind people, it's something that's motivated or driven or perceived by anybody to be down to someone's race, religion, disability, sexual orientation or gender identity. So there's 5 specific areas, so it's quite a wide definition. But as I say, most incidents that come into us are actually then recorded as crimes, and even more so over the last 12 months because of our push around CDI compliance and making sure our crime recording reflects reality. So just looking at a couple of areas of the report, if I can, just in paragraph 3, it does outline there around, and I think it's quite an important statistic, around 80% of hate crime relates to offences of public order where the victim is caused to feel under threat or distressed or alarmed. So 80%. So the vast bulk of hate crimes is where someone is meant to feel in that particular way, as opposed to being actually subject to a physical assault. So I think that's an important fact there. Just I touched on a little moment ago around CDI compliance, and we do know in the last refresh that our performance department have run that about 15%, we've got a 15% increase of crime, but the question I always have is, how more likely are you to be a victim of crime? And it reflects back to this data, so it's about 4 or 5%. So I do believe hate crime is up, but not by 15%, that's a recording issue, but by about 4 or 5%. The report covers off in paragraph 4 just around satisfaction. We have had a slight dip in satisfaction of our victims of hate crime, and it's down by a couple of percentage points there, but it's still in the 80s, so it's still 8 out of 10 people are happy with the levels of response we give, but of course we would like that to be higher. Just when I look at the particular areas then of hate crime, as it has been for some time and since I've been leading on this, race hate crime of the 5 areas is the largest category, and again 80% is in race hate crime. And then the smaller categories, which make up the other 20% or so, are the religion or the faith-based areas, disability, sexual orientation, and then gender identity or transphobic hate crime. Just when we look at a little bit more detail about what we have been doing recently to continue to raise awareness and reach out to our communities, we've done a lot of work, and I know yourself's done a lot of work just around media releases, community events. We had the summit over in Kirklees a little while ago. In relation to working in partnership, we continue with our Hate Hurts campaign, and as we all know, it's National Hate Crime Awareness Week this week, which has seen quite a lot of media events. It's seen events in schools with young people, with our youth and schools officers. The community safety partnerships have been running their own events, and we've done quite a lot of work around internal work as well, so within West Yorkshire Police, as opposed to just our communities, to make sure our workforce are aware of being a victim as well. In April this year, so not a great deal of time ago, we signed up with one of the forces nationally who've signed up with Tell Mama, which is an information sharing agreement that the MPCC have pushed out, and Tell Mama is a group which particularly look at measuring anti-Muslim attacks to try and look at our Muslim community there and support those. A couple of months ago, the Home Office launched their government action plan that came from the Home Office, and whilst a lot of the actions are for the Home Office and for education, there are 4 particular areas in there which relate to just policing, and they are around prevention and preventing and responding to hate crime, increasing reporting and working with the communities and third-party reporting centres, and we're very well placed nationally with those. We've got 142 across the county. Improving support for victims and working with victim support, and then building an improved understanding around what's actually happening out there in the community. And I do feel as if we are ahead of the game there, because we've had our campaign for the last 2 years, therefore we have better reporting, and therefore we can respond to that. At some point in the future, we expect a HMIC visit and a review of our response to hate crime, and because of that, in the last round of the local accountability meetings last month across the 5 districts, we looked in some detail at the 5 responses with the 5 district commanders as to what they're doing to respond to hate crime. Moving forward, later on in the year, we are looking at a peer review with Humberside Police, where we will go to Humberside, they will come to us, and we will review one another's response to hate crime and to share good practice across the region. And then you've got the report of the actual figures and the detail towards the back of the report, which outlines a little bit more information around the increases. And that's the sort of briefing of the report, really. I'm sure you'll have some questions.
Yes, thanks, Angela. I want to explore some of those things you've just reported on, and obviously what's in the report itself. Yes. And at the beginning of the meeting, I did obviously all make mention of the Hate Hurts campaign, which, as you say, has been running for nearly 2 years, and yes. The fact that we've relaunched it as a year-long campaign, I think signals our commitment, joint commitment to sending out a strong message that we will not tolerate hate crime wherever it comes from in any shape or form. So I really welcome that. So just coming on to some of the things you've talked about there. So obviously the events of the summer, Brexit, as we know, the vote on the European referendum. Could you just explain a little bit more around the analysis of those figures pre and post Brexit?
Yes, we have seen a steady rise over the last year to 18 months of hate incidents and hate crime, and we have seen that, but we did see a sharper increase just after the Brexit decision there. My fear at that point was that there was a lot of reports in the third-party reporting centres that were not coming through to us in a timely fashion, because we didn't feel as if we saw the same sharp increases that other forces had seen. But we did a piece of work with Karen Strapps to look at what was effectively in the queues, and we found there was nothing in the queues, and they were coming through to us within 24 hours, which was great. So we were up to date with our information. So whilst we have seen an increase, probably about 25% increase after Brexit, our levels have now returned to pre-Brexit. So ours have now gone back to where they were previously.
Which is roughly around 13 reports per day.
13 per day.
Across West Yorkshire.
Yeah. The range from maybe sort of 10 to about 15, but it comes back to around that low teen number. Yes.
Okay. Right, thank you. And it is good that we've carried out that level of analysis to keep a close eye on that. Looking at some of at the subgroup level then, so knowing that the proportion of the increases are real for the hate crime subgroups is important to help us understand whether specific faith, disability, sexual orientation groups are being targeted. So are you confident that we are drilling down to understand what's going on in some of those subcategories?
Yeah, in the report it does outline, you know, the increases we've had in the 5 areas, but it's the groups underneath there where I probably think we could do a little bit more analysis. And certainly when I've met with Andrew Wright, he talks about that within the subgroups. So for example, in relation to religion, that could be further broken down to understand the individual increases in religious groups, for example. And I think that the piece of work would feature on race hate crime because it is the one where there's the biggest numbers of 80% are in that group, whereas the other ones, whilst they might say there's a 100% increase, it might actually be one report only, so it doesn't really give us a meaningful data set.
Right. Yeah, okay. And again, you touched on victim satisfaction with hate crime has reduced a few percentage points.
Yes.
The report does provide details about the reasons for a similar drop in overall victim satisfaction, i.e. that's keeping people informed, down by about 4.5%, but it doesn't share that same information for hate crime. So would it be possible to get a breakdown for that?
This was actually picked up in the last round of the local accountability meetings where what we found out, and we only did by doing the detailed analysis, was that some districts, some of the crime reports are allocated out to patrol officers that work 24/7, but in some of our districts they're allocated out to ward officers who would work in that particular ward as part of the neighbourhood policing team day in, day out, and they were actually dealt with better and victims were kept informed. So one of the changes we've made only last month is around all race hate crimes will be allocated out to the ward officers at a ward level and supported by the PCSOs, because actually if I was a ward officer I would want to know if I had a vulnerable victim on my patch to be able to give that support and look at repeat offences as well. So that's one change that we've made following the last round of the local accountability meetings.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to see the impact of that. In relation to race hate, which does account for about 80% of the... Actually, can I just touch on the business of eight incidents and 8 crimes?
Yes.
Do you think that this is a potential for confusion amongst the public?
Yes, I do, and it's got potential to be confusing for us internally as well, around do we count them individually, do we add them together, what's the difference? And I've asked the question of staff, what is a hate incident versus a hate crime? And the best example of, say, a hate incident that wouldn't be a crime, and we had one only the other week, is where a disabled chap was waiting at a bus stop and the bus pulled it over as if it was going to collect him and didn't and carried on driving by. Well, that isn't a crime, but it's certainly something that he felt was based on his disability as a hate incident. So there is confusion, certainly amongst the public, sometimes our staff as well, but you will notice from the data in paragraphs 1 and 2, the vast bulk of incidents, hate incidents that come in are then reported as a crime. There's only very, very few that are not actually crimes, and that is because of our improved crime performance and our improved crime recording performance. So if we have a little look at it, just in paragraph 2 there, it talks about 2,372 incidents, and of those 2,124, so there's only 250 or so that are not actually crimes. So the vast bulk are then crimes, which is reassuring, but the flip side of that is that because of cuts in policing, etc., some of our community groups have said, well, I know it's not a crime, so I didn't bother reporting it. We actually even need to know about the incidents, and whilst we won't investigate them because they're not crimes, we still need to know about them, and certainly at ward level.
So I think in the future, Commissioner, we need to think about how we present it, and I think we need to come and talk about crimes, and then have another category of I'm tempted to say non-crime, but incidents. Whereas whilst ever we talk about two similar figures,
Yeah.
it will always just keep getting this question. Whereas if we just come and say there's been, 2,100 crimes and another 300 incidents.
Yes, because as you say, it's confusing for us,
Yeah.
Yes.
let alone what
Yeah.
the public try and make of
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
whilst clearly I understand the difference, it doesn't help, quite frankly, in terms of understanding.
Yeah.
And I know it's a national.
Yes, it is a
Yeah.
national. I think the way I've explained to staff is everything comes into policing as an incident, and the vast bulk of those then are converted into crimes, and it's only a handful that just remain as incidents only, like the disabled chap at the bus stop,
Yeah.
where a crime hasn't been committed.
Yeah.
But you are right, it's
Sure.
confusing. We don't add the two together because then we'd be doubling up.
Yeah, no thanks. I felt I needed to just have a quick conversation about that. So still on race hate then, so the arrest rate for hate incidents has reduced from 35% down to 24 in a year, which is associated with a reduction of arrests and an increase in incidents. It's really just seeking reassurance that suspects are still being dealt with accordingly, even if that's not necessarily through an arrest.
Yes, whilst the arrest rate might have lowered, a lot of that is to do with the hike up in crimes that we've had, so therefore there's still quite a lot of arrests being made. But if you're looking then at our detection rates, our members of the public who are victims of hate crime are more likely to have their crime detected than other crime types, so it's still quite positive.
So proportionately?
Yes, proportionately.
Yeah. Okay. So in relation to faith hate, incidents in 2015 doubled,
Yes.
and the data from this year so far shows a further 20% increase in incidents. Half of these show that it's roughly impacting on the Muslim community. But as the number of incidents continue to rise, are we seeing any other faith groups targeted in a similar way?
Yeah, the categories after our Muslim communities are around Jewish and Christian, but we've done quite a lot of work, certainly across Leeds, that I know, Pat Twiggs has led on around our Jewish community to give them the support, so they will come forward and report incidents or crimes which have happened. There's no other faith or religion groups after our Jewish and our Christian groups who are highlighted as an increased risk, so it is quite focused.
Okay, and through the report, the number of outcomes recorded are being provided along with the number of crimes recorded. For example, 2015-16's data show 3,053 race hate crimes were recorded and 2,873 outcomes. What is the result of those crimes recorded that don't get an outcome recorded?
It's because it would still be under investigation, so that as yet, and obviously the data takes a little bit of time to catch up, but it's around matters that are still ongoing. We used to have, again we picked this up at the local accountability meetings, where if a crime was dealt with, it couldn't be finalised for 28 days. So therefore they would have stayed open on somebody's workload. One of the changes we've made is that if a crime has been dealt with or an incident has been dealt with, it should be finalised, it should be closed in a proportionate and timely manner. So that lag it was the only crime type we've done it for, that lag should catch up in due course, but they're still under investigation, even though they might have actually been dealt with, because you couldn't close them for 28 days.
But hopefully many of them will be closed well before the 28th.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So some of the other things that I've been involved in joint meetings. So in addition to recent meetings in Leeds, for example, to try and reassure the Polish community following the attack in Armley,
Yes.
Can we have more information about what West Yorkshire Police are doing at a district level to reassure not only Polish but, for example, other Eastern European communities?
Yeah, all the commanders gave an update at the last round of local accountability meetings as to what their communities look like, how the tone and temperature is in their communities, and in particular Leeds certainly had a high Polish community, as you're aware of. We had an incident in Bramley, and then we had another incident in Armley. So the commanders are very alive to that, working with partners, working with councillors, raising it on their community safety partnerships, and being very overt with any media that they're doing. So for example, Leeds, Paul Money, the commander there, held a number of meetings of which media outlets were invited to after the incident in Armley. So they're all doing different because they've all got different community groups, but they are very much alive to it to give that support and work with community groups as well. And at my last independent advisory group meeting, we specifically talked about hate crime, and the group shared good practice around what was happening across the 5 areas.
Okay, thank you. And I guess one of the issues that comes up, and clearly I was at the Polish
Yes.
community meeting, was the issue of languages within our communities. Often English isn't the first language for a lot of some of our communities, and it's really around what more we can try to do to protect those who might have some additional vulnerabilities because of the language barrier.
Yeah, this was picked up a little while ago under our Hate Hurts campaign, and we're working with Stop Hate UK, who produce quite a lot of literature in a number of languages, and our internet now is signposted through to some of those, but we can always do more. Of course we can always do more, but we have used Stop Hate UK as a vehicle to do that, as have other forces, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it's something that we picked up as well with Tell Mama, with our Muslim community as well, where English isn't the first language.
Yeah. No, I think that's. I mean, again, you're probably aware we've worked with Stop Hate UK, and we've funded an app for them to develop an app to report hate crime, which is really good. But again, perhaps another development there is looking at one in different languages that could really assist with some of that. I guess just finally, I'm aware of a pilot in Nottinghamshire around recording misogyny.
Yes.
As a strand. Is that something we will be looking at in terms of the pilot, or one of the other outstanding issues for us is something around subcultures, which Sophie Lancaster,
yes.
Unfortunately the death of her as someone who was attacked because of a subculture that she was involved in, and we have held events in Bradford around that. So it's just looking at wider than the work that we've already undertaken.
Yes, currently West Yorkshire are just kept in line with the national stance around the criteria in the 5 areas, but we are aware of Nottinghamshire running this pilot, and they've now obviously got a 6th strand, so we are reviewing that and looking at it, but as yet we're just looking at how their pilot progresses. But they have very kindly sent us their literature, their promotional DVD that the chief obtained at a conference she was at. So whilst we're keeping an open mind on that, we are not moving to that just yet. We're just keeping the normal 5 strands, but clearly we'll continue to look at it. And
on the subculture agenda?
Again, Karen Strapps did a little bit of work around other forces where they'd had the subculture issue, but as yet we haven't moved to that. We are probably the same as the bulk of the other forces who have just got the 5 strands at present. But I think we will look at any pilots or any review work that happens in the future.
And I suppose the important bit is whether we categorise our crime in a certain manner. It doesn't stop us dealing with any of those issues. Whether they're public order offences, domestic violence offences, or other hate and harassment type offences, they'll still get dealt with. But at the moment, we don't have Home Office classifications for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, on the misogyny one, that's very recent, and I accept that Nottinghamshire are I think the only
They
force
are.
at the moment that with comments that have been made in other places over the weekend, it brings it to the fore, doesn't it? And I think on the subculture one, I raised that particularly because it is something we have been looking at for some time, and perhaps maybe if we could have a conversation about that outside of this meeting, I think that would be helpful. Okay. I think that's it in terms of the questions on those on that report, unless there's anything else you want to comment on.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.